The heavy August air clung to the skin like a damp cloth, thick with the smell of popcorn, hot dogs, and the sweet, sticky promise of summer's end. To 10-year-old William, the Maplewood County Fair was the most magical place on earth. It was a kingdom of dizzying lights and cacophonous sounds, a temporary city of wonders erected just for him. He walked between his parents, his small hand dwarfed by his father's rough, calloused palm, his eyes wide as saucers, trying to drink in everything at once. The frantic, tinny music of the carousel mingled with the distorted rock and roll from the tilt-a-whirl, creating a symphony of excitement that vibrated in his chest. He tugged at his father's hand, pointing at a game where you could win a giant, grotesque purple gorilla by knocking over milk bottles with a baseball. His parents, Elena and David, exchanged a tired but happy smile. This was their one big outing of the year, a brief escape from the relentless rhythm of work and worry. David worked construction, his days a blur of sunup to sundown labor, while Lena managed the overnight shift at the local diner. For them, the fair was a luxury, a carefully budgeted treat for their only son, who they were determined would have a childhood brighter than their own. They watched as he dragged them towards the bumper cars, his face a picture of pure, unadulterated joy. For now, in the shadow of the Ferris wheel, they were not just parents. They were co-conspirators in their son's happiness, his laughter a balm for their tired souls. The world outside, the stack of bills on the kitchen counter, the leaky faucet that needed fixing, seemed a million miles away. They were a family, a unit of 3, lost in the happy chaos of the fair. The line for the bumper cars was a writhing serpent of children, its tail end marked by a tired-looking teenager holding a "Line starts here" sign. David gave William's hand a final reassuring squeeze. "You remember the rules, buddy. Stay where we can see you. No running off." William nodded vigorously, his gaze fixed on the sparking poles of the cars ahead. As the line shuffled forward, a gap opened up between William and the family in front of them. It was just a foot, maybe 2. But in that moment, the universe seemed to tilt. A flash of movement to his right, a cluster of older kids bursting from the crowd, chasing a loose balloon, caught the corner of William's eye. It was instinct, pure and simple. Now he let go of his father's hand and darted sideways to get a better look, a single impulsive step that took him out of the protective bubble of his family. In that same instant, the line lurched forward again. David, his attention momentarily on his wife fumbling for tickets in her purse, felt his son's hand slip from his own hand instinctively closed on empty air. His head snapped down, a smile still playing on his lips, expecting to see William's messy brown hair. But William wasn't there. The space beside him was vacant. A cold, sharp spike of panic, unlike anything he'd ever felt, drove straight into his gut. "William," he said, his voice cracking. It was a small sound, immediately swallowed by the cacophony of the fair. He turned, a full circle, his eyes scanning the crowd of legs. Lena, hearing the change in his voice, looked up from her purse. "What? Where is he?" Her question was sharp, laced with the first tendrils of her own terror. They pushed through the people behind them, their apologies frantic, their eyes scanning, searching. But the fair had swallowed their son whole. To William, the separation wasn't a disaster. It was an adventure. He saw the kids with the balloon and took a few more steps, trying to follow their game. Then a man walking a tiny dog on a leash cut across his path, and when he looked up, the kids were gone. He turned back to where his parents had been. But the sea of unfamiliar legs all looked the same. He saw a woman with a red handbag, like his mom's, and his heart leaped. But when he pushed through the crowd, it was a stranger. A wave of heat, different from the summer air, washed over him. It was the hot, a tight feeling of being lost. He tried to call out, but his voice was a reedy whisper against the roar of the fair. "Mom, Dad." No one heard him. He was a small island of quiet terror in a churning ocean of noise and light. He started walking, then jogging, weaving through legs and strollers, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. He passed the tilt-a-whirl, but its spinning cars no longer looked fun. They looked like a blurry, threatening monster. He passed a cotton candy stand, its pink fluff now just a garish stain. He just wanted to find the quiet spot, the safe spot. He wanted his mom. A security guard named Earl was on his third lap around the fairgrounds. A retired firefighter with 25 years on the job, he had seen the full spectrum of human crisis, from 3 alarm blazes to medical emergencies. But his soft spot, the one that had never hardened over the years, was for lost children. He'd been doing this fair security gig for 5 summers now, and his unofficial title, given by the other guards, was the Keeper of Lost Souls. He was a mountain of a man, with a broad chest, a gray-speckled beard, and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. His job tonight was to patrol the perimeter, but his real mission, the one he'd given himself, was to scan the crowd for that one specific look, the wide, darting eyes of a separated child. He saw William before William saw him. The boy was standing by a light pole, his small shoulders shaking, tears cutting clean tracks through the fairground dust on his cheeks. He was trying to be brave, trying to stifle his sobs, but his body was betraying him. Earl's heart gave a familiar, dull ache, and he remembered the feeling. He'd had a son once, a long time ago. Earl approached slowly, not wanting to startle the boy. He lowered himself into a crouch, bringing his face level with William's, his knees popping in protest. "Well, hello there, partner," he said, his voice a low, gentle rumble, like distant thunder over a calm lake. William flinched, but something in the man's steady gaze held him there. "You look like you might be on a bit of a solo adventure. My name's Earl. What's yours?" The simple kindness in his voice was a crack in William's dam of fear. The tears flowed faster, and he tried to speak, but only a hiccuping sob came out. Earl just nodded patiently. "That's okay. Take your time. You know, I have a grandson about your size. He gets the hiccups when he cries, too." He reached into his pocket and produced a clean, white handkerchief. "Here, this is for you. My wife, she makes me carry 100 of these things. Says you never know when you'll meet a young man in need of a good one." William took it, his small fist clutching the soft cotton. He wiped his face, the simple action grounding him, pulling him back from the edge of his panic. The man wasn't a stranger anymore. He was Earl, a man with a grandson and a wife who liked handkerchiefs. Meanwhile, at the fair's administrative office, a small, chaotic command post had been set up. Lena was sitting in a plastic chair, her face ashen, her hands wrapped around a cup of cold coffee someone had given her. She was staring at the door, her mind a white noise machine of terror. David was on his feet, pacing like a caged animal, repeating the same description to anyone who would listen. "He's 10. Brown hair, blue shirt. He's wearing a blue shirt with a dinosaur on it. His name is William." A young security guard was on the radio, his voice calm and professional as he relayed the description to every team on the ground. The police had been called. It was standard procedure. The first 30 minutes were critical. The air in the room was thick with a desperate, clinging fear. David stopped pacing and stood by the window, his fists clenched. He couldn't look at Lena. He couldn't bear to see the accusation he was sure he'd find in her eyes, the one he was already hurling at himself. He had let go. He had let his son's hand slip away. The memory of that empty space in his palm was a physical wound. Back near the food stalls, Earl had made a decision. He stood up and extended a large, weathered hand to William. "Okay, William. Here's the plan. The fair, she can be a tricky place. All these lights and sounds can play tricks on you. The best way to find your folks is to get to a high, quiet spot. A place where the people in charge can see for miles. I know just the spot, but I need you to be my co-pilot. Can you do that?" William, his hand now safely enclosed in Earl's, nodded. It was the first time he'd felt truly safe since he'd let go of his father's hand. They started walking, Earl adjusting his long stride to match William's small, determined steps. As they walked, Earl pointed out things, not to distract the boy, but to keep him engaged, to keep the fear at bay. "See that fella over there trying to win that big teddy bear? His aim's all wrong. You gotta lead the target a little. And that caramel apple stand? That's my weakness. Don't tell my wife." "Yeah, but I had 2 of them earlier." By the time they reached the base of the small elevated platform that served as the security command post, William was even managing a weak, wobbly smile. From their high vantage point, Earl and William scanned the crowd below. It was a living tapestry of movement and color. "Now, the trick is," Earl said, his voice a calm murmur, "not to look at everyone. Just look for the one thing that matters. Tell me, William, what's something special about your mom or dad? Something we could spot from up here?" William thought hard, his brow furrowed in concentration. "My dad, he has a hat. A blue baseball hat. It has a C on it for the Cubs." Earl clapped him gently on the shoulder. "A Cubs fan. Good man. And your mom?" William squinted. "She has a green purse. It's shiny." "Perfect," Earl said. "2 things. A blue Cubs hat and a shiny green purse. Let's be lookouts." They stood in silence for a moment, 2 pairs of eyes scanning the shifting crowd. Then William gasped and pointed. "There, by the lemonade, a blue hat." Earl's eyes followed the boy's finger. And there he was, a man in a blue Cubs hat pushing frantically through the crowd, his head whipping back and forth. And right behind him, a woman with a shiny green purse clutched to her chest, her face a mask of desperate hope and fear. They weren't just looking. They were searching with the frantic energy of people whose whole world had been broken. Earl squeezed William's shoulder. "You did it, partner. You found them." Earl knew better than to let William run down the ramp into the crowd. The reunion had to be controlled. He got on his radio. "Command post to ground team." I have the lost boy, William. "We are at the North Command Post. His parents are in the vicinity of the lemonade stand. Please escort them here." Then he knelt by William. "They're coming. They're going to be so happy to see you. You were so brave up here." The minutes that followed were the longest of William's life. And then, the door to the platform creaked open. Lena burst through first, her face crumpling the second she saw him. "William!" The word was a sob, a prayer answered. She ran to him, dropping to her knees and pulling him into a hug so tight it seemed she was trying to absorb him back into herself. David was right behind her, his own eyes glistening. He didn't run to his son. He walked, his legs unsteady. He put a hand on William's head, then on Lena's shoulder, his body shaking with the release of a terror he'd never known. As it was a messy, beautiful, tearful reunion. In the midst of it, Earl quietly stepped back, leaning against the railing, a soft, satisfied smile on his face. This was the moment. This was why he did it. After a long minute, Lena looked up, her eyes meeting Earl's. She saw the uniform, the kind eyes, the gentle patience in his stance. She disentangled herself from William and stood up, walking towards the security guard. She didn't say anything. She just opened her arms and gave him a hug. Earl, surprised for a moment, gently patted her on the back. "It's all right, ma'am. He's a brave one, a good co-pilot." David came over and shook Earl's hand, holding it in both of his grip firm with a gratitude that words could not capture. "Thank you," he managed, his voice thick. "Thank you." William tugged on Earl's pant leg. Earl looked down. Thanks for the handkerchief, Earl," the boy said. Earl chuckled, a deep, warm sound. "You keep it, partner. Something tells me you're going to have a lot of happy tears to wipe away in your life. Not sad ones." He knelt one last time. "Now, you listen to your folks, okay? And maybe next time, you hold on a little tighter." William nodded, his hand finding his father's and gripping it with all his might. The family walked back down the ramp, back into the swirl of the fair. But the noise didn't seem so loud now. The lights didn't seem so scary. They were together. David looked down at his son, then at his wife. He didn't say he was sorry, he didn't have to. The grip of William's small, sticky hand in his said everything that needed to be said. He was forgiven. They were safe. They walked past the tilt-a-whirl and the carousel, and a family of 3, whole again. Earl watched them go from his perch. He touched the brim of his cap in a silent salute, then turned his gaze back to the crowd. Somewhere down there in that sea of light and sound, there was another lost soul, and he had a fresh handkerchief in his pocket, ready and waiting. The world kept spinning, the fair kept roaring, and the keeper of lost souls went back to work.